I'll try to project my voice enough to where everyone can hear, and if there's any issues hearing me, please let me know. Try to speak up. Can we just get like a little like name and where you came from to get here, just so I can know who everybody is?
My name's Sally. Came with Chad from Indiana. Oh yeah, where at?
Well, I live in Bloomington.
Bloomington? Yeah, I'm just south of there, southeast of there, towards Cincinnati.
My name's Emily. I am coming from Arvada, Colorado.
Okay, welcome.
I'm Crystal. I'm originally from Indiana, but I'm in Salt Lake now.
Cool.
All right. Welcome.
I'm Devin.
No matter what nobody
Derek, I came from Denver.
what you do.
I'm David. I'm born in Indiana. I live in Vegas now.
You're fine.
Indiana representing strong in here today.
Yeah.
I'm Tara from Boulder,
Everybody's like,
Colorado.
oh,
And I work with the children's
all
ministry.
that work, huh?
Welcome everybody. I talked to a few of you before we got started, and it sounds like everyone's enjoying their bloom. Happy to be here. So a few things I want to get out of the way, like some small talk and some disclosure type stuff before we get started. Forgiveness has nothing to do with religion. A lot of us have built such a barrier against the word forgiveness in our lives because, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Hey, how are you?
I'm right here.
We just now started, so you're good to go. And I'm just doing a couple like disclaimers or a couple statements before we get going. And I was talking about how forgiveness doesn't have anything to do with religion. A lot of us have a barrier that we place, myself included, against the word forgiveness because we associate it so strongly with religion, and many of us have been traumatized by religion in our lifetime to some degree or another. So this isn't about religion. It doesn't even have to be a spiritual practice for you. It is for me, but at the very least, it can be a psychological or a mental and emotional practice for you. Feel free to squeeze in. You all can just squeeze on in. If there's a comfortable spot, I can turn it back up a little bit. Yeah, gotta be careful. Welcome everybody. I was just explaining to everyone how when we hear the word forgiveness, we often associate it with religion, and it's not really, it doesn't have anything to do with religion. The things I'm going to share with you today they also don't have anything to do with my opinion or my belief or my subjective thoughts on the matter. If I have 2 stones in one hand and 2 stones in the other, I observe that I have 4 stones. And so I'm just transmitting to you some things that I've observed in my lifetime. And I'm not telling you that you have to forgive. I'm not telling you that you should or need to do anything like this. What I am telling you is that if you choose to forgive, you will experience a higher level of freedom in your life. And unless you forgive, you will not ever experience true freedom, full sovereignty. The word sovereign comes from the Latin super, which means above, and then reinos, which means reign or rulership. So to be sovereign means to be above the rulership of anything outside of yourself. It means to have rulership over your own kingdom, to have dominion over yourself. So forgiveness is a necessary step in developing that and becoming truly free. We'll go through plenty of forgiveness stuff first, and that kind of leads into the natural law, and it kind of leads into how these are requirements for freedom. And as we're going along, try to make note of or try to connect dots of how we talk about specific things when it comes to forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, and just practicing forgiveness more in our lives. Ask yourself the question: how will that affect overall human freedom? How will that affect collective freedom? Will that have an impact? And I think the answers that you'll bring forth are gonna, maybe surprise you or really just leave an impression on you. There's nothing new under the sun. This has been spoken about for thousands of years. Every spiritual tradition and mystery tradition has talked about forgiveness, has talked about the evolutionary power of love and truth and freedom. When we think something or feel something or do something, it comes from two places. It comes from two generative polarities, is what we call them. And one is love, and the other one, we can call it fear, but it's really the absence of love. Just like darkness isn't a thing, it's only the absence of light energy. And cold isn't a thing, it's just the absence of heat energy. Fear is just the absence of love. And when we create from that polarity, when we generate thoughts, emotions, and actions from that polarity, we create more conflict, confusion, and disorder within ourselves, and we reflect that into the world around us. So all of these things are tied into making sure that our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, what we think, feel, and do, have more order to them, and they contribute to the evolution of ourselves, and then in turn the evolution of the world, the evolution of all sentient beings. Who here has fucked up before? Same. So I could have started off and said, stop hating yourself and beating yourself up. Stop hating your neighbor and beating your neighbor up. Don't initiate aggression or harm towards anyone else, and don't allow anyone to initiate aggression or harm towards you or your neighbor. Workshop's over. So, right? So when I say that to you, and I say, when I say don't hate yourself or don't beat yourself up, I mean forgive yourself for being an imperfect human. Perfect is not attainable in this human form, but we can see what perfect looks like. We can know the truth of what perfection is, and that really comes down to what our behavior is. Not initiating harm or aggression towards others, not beating ourselves up, and not becoming slaves or masters of other people. So, like when we tie all these things together, like when I say that, don't beat yourself up, don't hate yourself, don't commit aggression, don't allow anyone to commit aggression. Does that sound like I'm speaking from a place with no love? Or does that sound like I'm speaking from a place that's empowered and filled with true care and love? Yeah, so you can feel it. That's a sacred commitment that we can make to ourselves to, at the very least, bring forgiveness into our awareness a little bit more every day. And it's like 2 + 2 = 4. If you bring forgiveness and give it more priority in your life, you will become more free. And that's mathematics. It's like I like to say that suffering and forgiveness have an inverse relationship. So the more I forgive, the less I suffer. The more I forgive, the less other people suffer. Through my actions and through my beliefs and what I support with my energy. No discussion of forgiveness would be complete without discussing the human ego. Who has one of those? Don't buy into this new age bullshit that you can kill your ego and it's gone. It's not fucking happening. That is used to confuse you. That's a tactic used. Like there's seeds of truth in all religious teachings and all spiritual teachings. There's a lot of good in New Age philosophy and New Age religion, but there's also some very dangerous cul-de-sacs that will trap you. So do not believe that you can just kill the ego and it's gone. The ego is with you. It's a part of your human experience. Every master and teacher that's ever existed had one till the day they left their human body. That ego is important for us. It can be a helpful navigator, a helpful co-pilot, and it needs to stay in the passenger seat though to help us navigate. Our heart should have the wheel. Ego versus heart. Fear, separation, abandonment, worry, trauma, unhealed issues, survival versus heart, truth, order, love, and freedom. So having an ego is not a problem. It's when the ego has us that is the problem. And the world is gripped by its own ego right now, collectively and individually. That's because so many individuals are under the control of their ego. Their heart's not giving orders, it's taking orders. The heart should inform the mind, and then you can act accordingly, not vice versa. I mean, there should be a two-way communication, but the heart needs to have the steering wheel. So analyzing the ego complex, and understanding that we all have one. We're all imperfect humans. We all took on programming, and we experienced things in life that we didn't know how to heal from. We didn't know how to process. Nobody taught our parents. Nobody taught their parents. Nobody taught us in school. And so we just build on these layers of hardwired programming from those things we couldn't heal from or couldn't properly process. So when we look at our own ego and understand that the ground of my shitty behaviors, whenever I've been bad to myself or I've been bad to somebody else, is because I let my ego take the wheel. I put my heart in the passenger seat, and that's when I fell out of alignment with truth and fell out of alignment with care and love. So the same reason that anyone was ever shitty to you was the same reason you were ever shitty to anyone else. When you committed a wrongdoing, it came from the generative polarity of fear. It came from the area where love was absent, where the ego was present rather than the heart. And it's the same for every individual that's ever walked the planet. Whether that's saying something nasty to you or committing a horrifying atrocity, a genocide or something like that, it all comes from the same place. It's different in degree, but the same in nature. The quality of where it comes from, where the insult comes from, is the same. So coming to understand that and understand that your shitty behaviors are, a reflection of the same place in the other person that committed something is important to recognize in order for us to apply forgiveness. Has anyone ever had, anyone have an example or a situation in their life, past, present, that, devastated them, whether they did it or whether someone else did it, and they really struggled forgiving, or maybe still struggle forgiving, and then, or if you experienced, actually offering the true energy of forgiveness, felt a level of liberation after you did that. Anybody want to throw something forward?
Something I've struggled with forgiveness is a friend that I used to have. We were very, very close. People would call us sisters. We did a lot of things, work stuff together as well. And I had a really hard few months where I got in a car accident. I had to move. I couldn't work because of the injuries I sustained. And at the same time, I left a boyfriend of 7 years. And it felt like a team of conflict outside. She also at that time stopped talking to me in a relationship. And I have struggled since then to, I still don't like her. I love everybody. I can't retract my energy from that. So that's something that I've honestly been working with all weekend. And for the full moon, I did a big ritual ceremony for it, and it was just very fitting. So I'm going to try to take this and practice it, but it's really hard.
Yeah, and I think we're going to touch on some things that will make that easier when we look at it from the objective perspective and disconnect our feelings from it a little bit. Right here, everything we're holding on to, everything that hurts us right now when we think about it, everything that triggers us, we can surrender for just this hour, and we can look at things through a microscope or through an objective lens, rather than have the emotional cycle and the triggers that get us worked up about it, So thank you for sharing that. And that's a situation, I think, similar situations, we've all experienced things like that. And you know what, you said you still don't like her. So what? That's okay. You know what I mean? Be okay with not liking someone. To objectively view something, you can still say, this behavior was shitty or this behavior was immoral. And we'll get into the true difference between a wrongdoing, an actual transgression, and then just maybe our feelings being hurt down the line. That's important to know and remember, so that we can understand what needs forgiven in others and what we really need to go in and forgive ourselves about. And it's okay to not like someone. It's someone. I always use example. I bring it up about when I was 6 years old. I was molested by an older kid in my neighborhood, and I don't like that guy. You know what I mean? I'm never gonna endorse or condone child molestation. I've forgiven that wounded human being because a whole and a well person doesn't do that, right? So I can forgive a traumatized human for doing something that was fucked up. No amount of forgiveness ever changes a wrong to a right. You can't do that. Wrong and right is defined by creation, not by us. We don't get to decide, what's truly wrong and right. We can interpret and decide what hurt our feelings and things like that. But if somebody, me forgiving that guy doesn't mean that I'm going to just like let him off the hook, or if I see a child being harmed, that I'm not going to intervene immediately. Forgiving a flawed human does not mean accepting immoral actions, right? Forgive someone that murdered another person. I'll never accept murder. I'll always stand against the initiation of violence and the taking of someone's life. But refusing to forgive is just poisoning my heart. It's just poisoning me. And sovereignty is a vibration. Sovereignty is a vibrational frequency of being. And I don't have to forgive. I don't ever have to. But I can choose to. And until I do, my vibration, whether I'm consciously aware of it or not, is going to be affected by holding on to that and letting it stay within my subconscious and fester. So I want to talk about, I like to use apophasis, or the apophatic inquiry, which means coming to understand what something is through negation, by first defining what something is not. So I want to talk about what forgiveness is not. And this is, when I say what forgiveness is not, a lot of times this is what the ego is going to try to tell you forgiveness is. Because the ego doesn't want you to be free. The ego wants you to be a slave to it. Right? The ego wants to be the master of the heart. So when I say forgiveness is not this, in the future, be aware of when you start to think, oh, but forgiveness means that. No, it's your ego trying to trick you. It's your ego trying to tell you that, keep you enslaved, basically, keep you in fear, keep you from liberating yourself through this process and through this practice. Forgiveness is not, as we said, accepting an immoral behavior. It's not condoning an action. Forgiveness is not changing a right to a wrong. A wrong to a right. Forgiveness is not being complacent. Forgiving yourself or forgiving another does not mean, okay, I forgive myself for doing this, and I don't have anything to work on. There's two separate things. I forgive myself for being a flawed human being, and I will devote myself and dedicate every step of my life to not doing that again, not committing that again. Or if someone's harmed me, I can forgive that wounded person, but I will always stand in opposition to that harm being done to anybody, myself or my neighbor. And it's the balance and the interplay of all these things that will set us free. Forgiveness does not require, this is a big one, forgiveness does not require the offending party to be sorry, or to tell you they were sorry, or to even perceive that they did anything wrong. What if someone did harm to me and the next day they died? Am I going to go to my grave waiting on their apology? I can if I want to, but it's not going to come, right? I'm not going to hear it. My ego won't be satisfied, but my heart can be satisfied if I offer the forgiveness anyway. The guy that did that to me when I was a child, I have no idea where he is, how to contact him, if he's still alive, but that's okay. I've offered the forgiveness and it can't be given back to me. I've offered that. I've severed the emotional tie to it. I still objectively view the action as wrong and immoral, and that whether I view it that way or not, it could never change because it is objectively wrong and immoral, but I've severed my emotional tie from that event and from that person. Forgiveness does not require you to tell the person that you've forgiven them either. If it's a dangerous situation, if it's toxic, if you don't want to ever talk to that person again, cool. That's completely fine. Like, allow yourself to do that. That's part of the self-defense principle, which is your right. Your objectively true right is to defend yourself, your mind, your emotions, your energy, and your physical body. So if I choose to forgive someone and never talk to them again, that's completely fine. The forgiveness is for you, not for them. So forgiving someone who is not sorry takes even more effort and more dedication. But when you do it, you will literally hear the chains breaking off your mind, and you'll hear the chains breaking off your heart. What else is forgiveness not? Anything silly?
Revenge.
Yeah, right. Forgiveness is not revenge. You know, revenge is an interesting one. I had like a podcast interview a few months ago where someone was really focusing on like revenge versus forgiveness, and it's like you can seek revenge if you want to, but you will reap what you sow. The universal laws of cause and effect are 100% effective. We're bound to them, and they work flawlessly. So if you seek revenge and seek to harm someone when you're not truly acting in self-defense, you will hurt them, or you could hurt them, but you're also really creating a lot of conflict within your being. You're creating a lot of consequential baggage for not just yourself but all of humanity. You're contributing to, and karma doesn't work like, cause and effect doesn't work like you go steal from someone and walk out of a building and a piano falls on your head. This is a shared experience. Are we not co-creating our experience here? So yes, you will receive the brunt or some of the noticeable consequences of your action if you're truly observing. But as a whole, humanity receives it. We are collectively reaping what we sow. So that's important to remember. You can choose to take revenge, but again, it's gonna harm you more. And choosing forgiveness and choosing love and care is really the ordering force. It's really going to actually contribute to evolution instead of involution, which revenge would do. Were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Then also you end up probably wanting to forgive yourself for taking revenge eventually.
Yeah.
Too.
So in other words, you taking revenge on someone or you harming someone when you're not truly acting in self-defense is going to contribute to self-loathing, right? Self-loathing, self-hatred, self-disdain for ourselves, lack of self-respect, lack of self-love. All of these things contribute to slavery. All of these things make us a slave. Self-loathing people either try to dominate others or they submit to the will of someone who would try to dominate them. Sometimes we're a slave to our egos. Sometimes we're a slave to other people's egos. Yeah, that's a good point. You will also struggle with forgiving yourself for seeking that revenge. So what forgiveness is? We talked about some things that forgiveness was not, and a few more might come to me as we proceed. But yeah.
I'm curious about what your thoughts are on, like, kind of moving on. Like maybe you don't forgive yourself, but you go forward, or you don't forgive that person, but you go forward. Yeah, I was curious what his thoughts were on the difference between, like, truly forgiving and just moving on, and what your thoughts on that were.
Yeah. Both can, forgiveness is the potent force, right? Forgiveness is the potent, liberating, freedom-producing a factor in the equation. Letting go can sometimes be necessary for a period of time until we mature spiritually and mature psychologically to a point where we're able to confront and to properly process through it. And again, we can always just choose not to do any of this, and we will reap what we sow, but it's always a choice. But if we say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to just let this go for now, and I'm going to revisit it in 6 months or a year or whatever, make it some sort of commitment to come back, knowing the true potent power of forgiveness to really set us free and to raise our vibration and to manifest what we say we want. Choosing to let it go, it's just important to make sure that we do revisit it, because if we simply say, I'm going to let it go and that's it forever, then we're in a sense running from our shadow, and failing to, like bypassing a situation, and it will fester. So if we can think we've let go, but if we haven't truly offered the force of forgiveness, there's still chains in place, And so, but like I said, if you need to do that, if we need to do that and just say, I'm going to just let it go, I'm gonna dismiss it for a while, this and that. That's something sometimes we need to do as a stepping stone. But the goal, like I said, if we remember what perfection is, if we remember what the path is, right? The destination is the path. We won't reach perfection, but we know what it is. So if we're committed to the work and we're dedicated to growing and evolving and truly healing, it should always be at the front of our consciousness, the front of our awareness, to come back and, as soon as we're able to, really offer that power of forgiveness. And the more we do it and practice it with smaller things, less significant things in our life, things that aren't as painful, like forgiving ourselves for the little daily fuck ups we have, the easier it becomes. And to a point, you bring forgiveness not like to a place of being your second nature or your first nature, but your state of being. It's in the word, forgive. You're giving something. You're giving love without conditions. You're giving love without expectations before something happens. Forgiving. You're giving it before there's a need for it. So that really, when we can develop that sort of compassion for ourselves, forgive ourselves before we fuck up, because we know we fucked up how many times before, and we're gonna fuck up a million more times. I will every day. And I already forgive myself for that. Does that mean I'm gonna acknowledge the fuck up and say, "Oh, you're forgiven, Chad. There's no work to do"? No, I'm gonna acknowledge the fuck up and say, "You're forgiven, Chad. I'm not gonna hate you and beat you up and harm you and the people I love, and carry that around with me forever. And there's work to do. Identify what you did wrong, and pick up the chisel and the hammer, and get to work." I love to use the analogy that the statue was always within the stone, and that we are every person is a mason if they choose to be. The ancient the occulted mysteries of Freemasonry are extremely potent allegories to the transformation of human consciousness. So that's important to remember, that within every stone there already is a statue. And I think that, energetically and vibrationally, we're born a statue, and then we go through society's washing machine of creativity and imagination, and we get programmed and hardwired and traumatized and deceived and lied to. And once we come back into contact with truth, once we come back and to remember that there is a chisel and a hammer to be used, there are tools that I can employ, there are faculties within myself and resources within myself to chisel back away that excess stone and become who I was born to be, bring my most authentic self forward. And once we remember that, it's time to get to work, and it's a lifelong commitment of devotion, being devoted to the good. What's good for me is good for the world. As one being suffers, all beings suffer, and as one is freed, all are free. So if I want to give my children a world, the world that I say I want, the world where there's no systems of domination, where there's nobody initiating harm or coercion or fraud or aggression against others, and there's nobody standing to let that happen to them or their neighbors, and that people aren't hating themselves or their neighbors, then I've got to pick up the chisel and the hammer, and I've got to dedicate myself to the good of myself and the good of all. I'm going on a little ramble here, gang. How's everybody doing? We hanging in there? Cool. Any thoughts on anything right now? Anything bubbling up from beneath the surface? Yeah. What's
I have
up?
another one.
Sure.
I was wondering and thinking about if forgiveness is a choice and or a feeling.
Oh, I'm really glad you said that. And I'm just going into what forgiveness is after talking about what forgiveness was not. So that's going to be one of the things I hit on here in one or two steps. Forgiveness is, we talked about what it is not. Forgiveness is self-respect. The word respect means to look again. Re means again, and spectare from the Latin means to look or to see. So to respect oneself is to look again at oneself. And so forgiveness is self-respect. Forgiveness is self-care. Forgiveness is spiritual and emotional and mental hygiene. Like when our clothes get soiled or our skin gets soiled, we wash it, right? When our mind and our vibration gets soiled by negative events, negative self-talk, self-doubt, traumatizing experiences, we need to cleanse our thoughts and cleanse, practice spiritual hygiene. Or if you don't like spiritual, that's cool too. Practice psychological hygiene. What the words we assign to it are not what's important. It's the energy exchanges that are taking place. So, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological hygiene, keeping ourselves clean. The more shit we stick onto ourselves that we take from other experiences, and we leave our power and our sovereignty with this experience and that experience, the more we're contributing to all the things we don't want to see in the world, all the things we see in the world that we don't accept. Forgiveness is inner child work. Close your eyes and forgive those adults in your life as a child who let you down and who didn't know any better. Forgive them, and remind your inner child that their suffering was not in vain, that you've remembered, what was washed out of them at one time, and that they went through what they went through for a reason, and that you're not going to let it all have happened in vain. Forgiveness is alchemy. It's taking the lead and transmuting it into gold, right? It's taking our shit experiences in life and transmuting them into wisdom, into higher consciousness and understanding and grace. That's the true alchemical process. It's not really just about turning the base metals into gold. It's about transmuting base experiences in our life into gold, illuminating them, bringing them to light. So that it is alchemy as well. It's shadow work, the same type of thing. We break this cycle of hating ourselves, being afraid to confront what we hate about ourselves, and running in circles from our shadow, which locks up our creative power so much. Forgiveness is like a spear that sticks right into that cycle and breaks it, and allows us to look at things objectively if we use it properly. So it's a way to stop in your tracks and quit running from your shadow, but turn around and give it a hug and make friends with it, and recognize that as long as the sun shines, you'll have a shadow, but the sun's shining. So turn and hug your shadow, make friends with it, thank it for being a teacher, thank it for informing you, and ask, don't be afraid of it. So that's how forgiveness is shadow work. It's one way to consider it, one way to view it. Most importantly, and nobody hates the word forgiveness more than the human ego. And this one is the hardest pill to swallow. Forgiveness is a free will choice. You will experience feelings, as you were asking. You will have feelings, and there should be feelings associated with the process of forgiveness. There might be pain, there might be anger, there might be sadness. But once the true energy is offered, there'll be euphoria, there'll be bliss, there'll be liberation, freedom. You'll feel a lot of things. And so forgiveness is both a choice and a feeling. But we cannot ever forget and let our ego trick us into thinking again that it's not a choice, because it is a choice. You can, and as I said in the beginning, you can choose not to forgive ever. You can hold on to everything that ever hurt you, and everything that you want to hate yourself for. You can if you want to, and that's your free will to do. I would honor that to the day I die. But like I said, it's like a math equation. If you make the free will choice to do it, you will be liberated. You will experience more freedom. So the choice is yours. It is a free will choice. The ego wants us to think that forgiveness is not a choice. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. They hurt me. They hurt me bad, and I can't do that, because remember, the ego wants you to think forgiveness is letting someone off the hook, or that forgiveness is saying what they did was actually right when it's not. And forgiveness is not that. I don't need the reminder. I'm going to bring up the thing from Pyro. Last weekend I was at Pyro doing a similar workshop. It was called Forgiving Within a System That Wants You to Hate. And one of my friends there that I met not too long ago said, my wife actually brought it up and said, I used to struggle so much and say, that person doesn't deserve forgiveness. That person hurt me so bad, or they fucked up so bad, they don't deserve forgiveness. And Dale spoke up and said, yeah, that's my problem. That's the thing right there. You don't deserve it. Why would I give you my energy? And he answered the question he provided the answer to his question. Why would I forgive you? You don't deserve my energy. I forgive you because you don't deserve my energy. Because that event and that painful experience doesn't deserve my energy. I'm going to bring it back to where it belongs. I'm not doing it for you. If you benefit from my forgiveness, hallelujah. I want you to. I hope that you do. I hope that understanding that I forgave you helps you hate yourself less. Helps you forgive whatever it was that caused you to initiate that harm to begin with. I hope that you benefit from it. You can tell someone you forgave them or not, but when you actually do it, there's an energetic tether there that's cut, and they become free too, whether you verbally say it to them or not. So exactly, he answered his own question. That event doesn't deserve my energy anymore. I'm reclaiming it. I'm calling my energy back to me. And so when it's meditation time or when it's contemplation time, when I'm sitting alone, I look back at all the things that hurt me because I'm not scared of them anymore. Those things are my most valuable teachers. They're not monsters anymore because I forgive them. I forgive my shadow. But when I look at those things that hurt, I offer that forgiveness, and I'm calling my energy back to me. That person is better off if you forgive them, but that's not why you do it. You do it because you're better off. I mean, in turn, we're all one, so it's one and the same. But you're doing it you're responsible for yourself. You know, so because that event doesn't deserve any more of you, quit leaving yourself with that event. Bring it back. Bring your energy back. And when you forgive it, then you can look at the event and learn so much more. Because before we forgive something, we look at it and it's so fucking triggering to us. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to think about it. It hurts. It's painful. Fuck that. I'm going to take the easy way out. I think it's the easy way out, but it's the painful way out. Lifelong pain. But look, man, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Yeah.
I had something else come up around like forgiving and remembering for your own safety and for safety of others.
Sure.
So, like, if you see someone in a similar situation that, you know, maybe triggers you because you'd say, that was me, to forgive and also step in and, you know, maybe alleviate that experience for someone else.
Right. If you see a wrongdoing taking place, or you suspect one might be, it's just as much your duty to intervene within your rights and within whatever way is safe and comfortable for you, as it is to protect yourself. And the thing about forgiveness is that, you know, forgiving and not forgetting is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
When we forgive it, we can really objectively look at it and learn. Like I said, learn so much more from the experience. It can be our teacher instead of our monster now, because if that experience triggers us so much and we haven't truly forgiven it, it can send us into a spiral of paranoia. It can contribute to our lack of trust. It is healthy to be able to observe something and say, I recognize this situation and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And that's always important. But we can do that so much more effectively if we've forgiven the situation, because we can look at it and learn from it rather than run from it and be afraid of it. And that's what, you know, we can act with grace, and we can you know, stand in opposition to things that really need to be opposed, like wrongdoings or harm. So that's sovereignty. You know, when we forgive that situation, we free ourselves up to act in alignment with truth, and we don't forget. When we do forgive, I think it actually takes that experience and leaves a deeper impression within our mind, and we're much less likely to forget it because we're not afraid of it anymore, and it was such an important and integral part of our process, you know? Whew. I'm just gonna take a break real quick and tell you all thanks so much, like, for coming here. We're still not done. I think we got some time. I want to touch on a few other things. You know, it's coming. You know, we come here for music, friends, connection, freedom, art, all the beautiful experience. But like taking the time when we're sometimes depleted from the heat or the chemicals or the whatever that, you know, the late nights and the traveling, And coming here to do this is dedication. It is devotion to the good. It's devotion to something better. It's you knowing that there's something within you. You have the resources within you, and you're coming to be reminded of those faculties that you have, and that there is a higher state to achieve, and that though we won't reach perfection, we can be on the path. The destination is the path, not perfection, but it's always keeping perfection in sight. Forgiving ourselves along the way for not being perfect. So thank you for like giving your time and caring enough to come here. The puppet masters of the world, the social engineers, the ancient psychologists that run this fucking planet, that know way more about the human mind and how it functions than the masses, the general population. They have put so many strategies in place to extinguish care. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Bohemian Grove. There's like a little a mock ritual they do where they burn. They do like a mock sacrifice and they burn something. That's called the cremation of care. Okay, and true care is the generative principle. It's the eighth or forgotten principle. It's the seed of life has 7 circles around it that make the seed of life, right? The 7 principles of truth. And the forgotten principle is the 8th principle, the generative principle of care. So they very effectively extinguish the care from our planet. And we have to restore the care if we want what we say we want. My daughter is 10 years old, and I don't really care if she slips up and says a swear word or a cuss word. I've always told her from day one, I don't really care if you say the cuss word or swear word or whatever, but the 3 things I really don't want you to say are I hate, I can't, and I don't care. These words are fucking spells, people. I'm telling you, like, if you don't recognize it yet, you will as we all evolve and grow. Words are spells, and these master psychologists are wordsmiths. They've designed words to be used and phrases to be used that keep us under spells. And saying the word I don't care is devastating to the state of human freedom, because true care is what sets us free. True care is love. True care is freedom. True care is truth. And that's the real generative principle. We create what we care about. So all that to say, thank you for having care and remembering that you have care within you and caring enough to come and share this space with us and talk. So we've touched a lot on like what forgiveness is not. I know it's like word alphabet soup. I know I spit a lot of words out, and just remember that these words are just my way to decorate the truth. It's my way of decorating the truth. Okay, let this truth bounce off your heart and reverberate. You weigh it against your own heart and decide, if it's true or not. It's up for you to take into yourself. Damn, lost my train of thought again. I'm good at that. So we talked about all the forgiveness. We talked about these truths. Damn, what was it, Sally? Come on, man. What's up, Damon?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. So, I lost my grandma just over 2 years ago, and there were just some things that I said to her, like as a child, where I was like, oh, this is annoying, or I always said sure to her, and then she would yell at me, saying I can't or I hate. She would always yell at me. So like we always had like a little bit of tension about that, and I never resolved that with her before she passed away. And like that always like sat within me, and whenever I would think about it, it would manifest physically, and like I would just get sick to my stomach. And it wasn't until I started talking to you and you told me that forgiveness is about me, it's not about the other person. And as soon as I heard that, it was so easy for me to like just get rid of that out of my body.
Right.
And like I love my grandma like with all my heart, and like she knew that, and she loved me with all her heart. Like it's beautiful, but that forgiveness is truly like for myself.
Yes.
Anyone else.
And it sets you free. And when our loved ones pass, there's nothing left unspoken. All right, there's nothing that you didn't get to say to them that you wanted to. They are closer to you now than they ever could have been when they're wearing this suit of separation. Right? This is just how we experience what it's like to be separate. But then when this meat suit dies, we're back into the one, back into the infinite and the source, and we're much closer than we ever could have been, even in the flesh. So there's nothing you didn't get to say to her that she didn't already know, and still, you know that. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've all said some shitty things to the people we love, haven't we? Damn, it's rough. Forgiveness isn't just a one and done thing all the time either. You know, you can't be like, I forgive it. That's bypassing. That's still running from the shadow. It's saying, you know, I forgive myself, and recognizing why you forgive yourself. And I forgive myself because I was fucked up and I was wounded, and I did something out of emotion and out of reaction and from a place of fear, and I did something shitty. And I forgive myself for that, and I'm also going to make sure I don't do that anymore. Or always work towards improving and healing those parts of me that caused me to do that. So it's accepting the past or what has already happened as unchangeable. We can't do it. We can't go back and change the past. But we can learn from it if we're not afraid of it anymore. So I think it's important to touch on, so the title of this workshop were Forgiveness, Natural Law, and the Requirements for True Freedom. And understanding objective morality, or the true difference between right and wrong, or what constitutes an actual wrongdoing or a transgression against another person, and what constitutes maybe just something that hurt my feelings, is important. So like there are 7 principles of truth, and we're not going to go into all the natural law principles here. We're going to touch on the foundational principles. But there are 7 real deadly sins. You know, the Bible describes like sloth, pride, gluttony, anger. Those are like things that you probably shouldn't do and that aren't going to be great for you, but they're not sin. They're not true transgressions, okay? And we'll talk about 7 transgressions real quick. 7 things that you already know. I mean, tell me if you can think of other transgressions that don't fall into these categories, and it'll be tough. Rape, murder, assault, theft, trespass, coercion, and willful deception, or willfully lying. And those are the 7 transgressions. Those are the things. If one of those was done to you by someone else, that's an objective wrongdoing. It's a truly immoral act, and it's something that when I forgive that person, I must always remember that it doesn't change that wrongdoing or that transgression into a right. It wasn't their right to do it. It's not their right to do it. It's not my right to do it to anyone else. And no amount of forgiveness can ever change that. It's easy to imagine if we're the last 2 people on an island, or we're the only 2 people on Earth, if it's wrong for me to do to you, it's wrong for any person to do to any person, or any group of people to do to any other group of people, anywhere in the universe. It's wrong. So knowing what those transgressions are is important when we are triggered, or we have an experience that we need to heal from or forgive, and knowing whether a wrongdoing was committed, or if someone just said, you know, Chad, you're overweight, and it hurt my feelings, and I don't want to talk to them anymore, and I'm mad about it. But if you recognize someone may have just told you something that was true, that you either hate yourself for, or that you lose respect or love for yourself, and it hurts your feelings, and your ego doesn't want to hear it, and you're mad at that person, it's not necessarily about forgiving them. It's about going aside and forgiving what triggered you to be upset about it. Woo! So it's important to understand that, and like, you don't have to remember like all those transgressions. You already know them. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But if you distill them down and boil them down, it's all theft. The one thing we're here to learn: don't steal. Rape is the theft of someone's free will choices, sexual consent. Taking of someone's sexual consent that doesn't belong to you. Assault is the theft of someone's physical well-being, or psychological or mental well-being. If you're constantly, tearing someone down, berating them, that's assault too. Murder is the unjust theft or taking of another person's life that does not belong to you. Theft is the theft of someone's rightfully acquired property that doesn't belong to you. Trespass is the theft of someone's right to be secure in their domicile, to be secure in their possessions and where they live. Coercion is the theft of free will, the dirtiest, nastiest theft of free will that we're all subject to every day. If you don't do this, you're going to get hurt. Someone's going to hurt you. If you don't surrender this much of your income, we're going to take money from you or take your house or throw you in jail. And if you resist, we're going to kill you. Coercion is the unjust taking or the theft of someone's free will. Threatening someone and saying, if you don't do this, this harm will happen to you and I'm going to do it, or my thugs are going to do it, is an absolute decimation of freedom. And then finally, willful deception is the theft of someone's ability or someone's right to make an informed decision. Like intentionally deceiving someone is taking their right to make an informed decision about their life, and it's not honoring their sovereignty. So all those can be boiled down to theft. Those 7 wrongdoings are forms of theft. The only thing you need to take away, don't steal. Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. And then the two foundational principles that natural law can all be wrapped up into. And if we really abide by these, we can forget the rest. These pillars are built within our hearts. They're part of our being. Everyone knows every particle, every thought, every energy, every being in creation has a masculine and a feminine aspect, right? So our feminine is the passive, receptive, nurturing, compassionate care that we have. Our masculine is the active, guardian, the protector, the protecting what's sacred and what's right. It's within all of us, and we also all have an imbalance, right? There's no toxic masculinity doesn't exist. It's just a suppressed feminine. It's when the feminine is suppressed and destroyed that has been engineered and perpetrated on us that the masculine goes unchecked and we become dominators. We become rulers over others, or we try to. So this masculine and feminine can be called, basically the two principles I'm talking about, these two foundational principles. The feminine principle of non-aggression, and this is we all know this. Most of us live our lives like this. But when we go to the voting booth, we don't live our lives like this. Principle means first thing, right? It means that which needs to be considered before anything else is considered. So the principle of non-aggression, most of us live that, right? We don't wake up in the morning and go threaten our neighbor and take their money, right? Or we don't go wake up and go beat somebody up. Most of us live according to that. But if I, and this is, you take with this what you will, but if I go run to the voting booth and I vote for a militarized system filled with police and goons and military and all this stuff, if I go and vote for them to threaten my neighbor and take their money, I'm not living according to principles. I'm living according to preference and living according to my conditioning, my programming, what's been hardwired. So, of course, don't aggress upon your neighbor, and leave it up to you to think about whether you want to support or give your energy or believe in a system or any institution that threatens your neighbor and robs them if they don't agree with the same check mark on the ballot that you do. So that's up to you to decide if that's in alignment with principles.